Okay, today we're going to cover Testosterone Strength 2.0, the science of stronger, longer life in 2025. Okay, so let's start this by talking about testosterone.
Yeah.
The importance of testosterone, the understanding of what testosterone is. And where I'd like to start is, I pulled a couple of facts off, right? I know these roughly, but I wanted to make sure that we kind of gave people good ideas of what we're talking about. So, testosterone levels in men have dropped roughly 1% per year since the 1980s, based on a 2007 study. From an estimated 600 to 800 nanograms per deciliter in 1920 to 400 to 600, which means that your testosterone at the same age is 200 deciliters lower than your grandfather's.
Oh,
right.
That's interesting.
Now, that's got to do with sedentary jobs, sitting on your ass all day, endocrine disruptors like plastics. Interesting fact, most men carry a credit card in their nutsack. Right.
Explain.
You have enough microplastics in your ball sack to make a credit card.
Really?
Yeah.
I never did.
Right. So microplastics, it's an endocrine disruptor. It changes the way the endocrine system actually transfers information.
Wow.
Messes up the whole rigor. That's one of the reasons. Sleep. We're exposed. Television's exposed to the blue light. Right.
Yeah.
Blue light affects that. Then you've got the manual labor versus the pre-tech lives, right? So if you think of the construction workers, iron workers, which is primarily most jobs.
My grandfather was a coal miner.
Right. Hard job.
Yeah.
Right. The whole day you're moving your body, you're up and down.
Actually, my dad was too for a little bit.
You see what I mean? So it changes the dynamic of how your body responds, right? So what we want to do is we want to talk about the testosterone decline, right? How does that impact modern masculinity? Because when you look at society and how we roll out a society now is there's a change in how men act and are responsive to things. Now, some of those responses are very positive, right? I think it's good for men to be more in touch with their emotions, to understand how to interact with the world. But that can also very quickly turn into something different.
Yeah.
Right. And what you don't want to be is you don't want to be that metrosexual man who's overly emotional. Essentially, it's a feminine man, which doesn't fit in with society.
Yeah.
So, you're on TRT, I'm on TRT. The one thing I can tell everybody is when you get on TRT and you haven't been on it, you can feel an immediate difference in how your body responds and enacts. Today, we're going to talk about a couple of different aspects. The one aspect we're going to talk about is how to naturally increase your testosterone levels so you can biohack to naturally increase them. And then we're going to talk about within the biohacking how you can use hormone therapy to give you that boost.
Nice.
Right. So generally my take on this, and listening to Dr. Peter Attia and Andrew Huberman, the recommendation would be is that over the age of at least 40, with the decline in testosterone levels, you want to be one of those people that gets on TRT. Now, over and above, if you're not someone that wants to go down the route, is the first most important thing is know where your numbers are.
Right.
Right. So go have a blood test done. Find out where your testosterone is. My personal opinion, anything under 900, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Is suboptimal.
Yep.
Right. They'll tell you 600, 700. That's absolute bullshit. That's baseline numbers. You want to be in that 900 mark or higher.
Yeah.
So you can be optimal with your testosterone. Now, interesting fact is, if
I was
you...
like 200 when I finally got mine checked.
Yeah. And then what was the difference when you got on it?
Oh, night and day.
Yeah.
Yeah, night and day difference for me. I mean, like, I just was always fatigued. I was tired. I felt like even, I was following somewhat of a meal plan. I was trying to work out, and I wasn't necessarily getting results. I was kind of accordioning, is that the right word? Like my body weight was going up and down.
Yeah.
So I'd drop a few pounds, I'd put the weight back on, I'd drop some more pounds, I'd put some back on. So I didn't feel stable, and then the fatigue was real. Brain fog was real too.
Oh, yeah.
Fatigue is really, and the way my doctor explained it was like me trying to drive a car without an engine.
Yeah.
And then trying to make it perform like a Corvette.
Yeah.
And you had no energy.
You've got none of the right things inside there.
Yeah. So me getting my blood work done finally and not being stubborn about it was huge.
Yeah.
It was a big time game changer. Within I wouldn't say it was like immediate, but it was like within 2 weeks I felt a huge difference.
Yeah. And I mean, if you think of testosterone in the baseline, it gets a lot of bad publicity. They talk about toxic masculinity. It's a little known fact is we've all heard of the they call it roid rage.
Yeah.
So essentially, for those again who don't understand this, testosterone therapy is essentially applying hormones, which are steroids, to give you a boost. Right now, what you're doing is you're replacing the natural aspect of your body's hormone production. After the age of 40, right, each year your testosterone level will naturally drop.
Yeah.
That's variable to each person depending on your diet, how well you exercise. So you can maintain really good testosterone levels into an older age.
Right.
Right. There's Dr. Sean Baker, who's I think he's an 8-year carnivore. I think he's turning 60 in about a year and a half's time. He's one of those few people that have naturally high testosterone levels and maintains it. But obviously, his lifestyle, he's super jacked. He's very strong. He eats meat. So he's kind of adapted it. So it's not an impossibility to naturally boost your testosterone. But it does become harder depending on your lifestyle. This is a guy who, one, he's a doctor. Two, he advocates and he lives his life as a carnivore, right? So not everybody's going to be in the same check. So the first place that you want to start is understanding your levels.
I remember going through with my doctor, and he's a veteran himself, and basically explained to me that a lot of veterans come out of the military with hormones all out of whack because of just a lot of the intense things that they are exposed to and experienced and stuff. And I think what I was probably most worried about going into doing TRT was side effects. Yeah. And I'm not a smart guy when it comes to the medical world at all, so I have to trust others, people like you, my wife, the doctor, right? But I'm a common sense person, so I always ask the question, why? Explain this to me in simple terms. Our podcast is the layman lab. I'm a very layman approach to everything that we do. And so I was worried about what are my side effects of it? What are my long-term fallouts of this? And so that's what probably caused me to delay it probably a good 6 months to a year to actually get on it, because I was nervous about what the side effects would be.
And the side effects are they're not well documented, right?
They're not.
As long as there's been steroids, what's happening is it's the one part of medical science that hasn't really been scientifically studied as it should be, right? What's happened is there's been a taboo around it, and most of the scientific studies are coming out now from guys with TRT therapy that's been out for the last couple of years. But before then, it was pretty much the bodybuilder or the powerlifter or the strongman kind of taking and saying, what does this do? How do I affect, right? I think up until the internet, until you actually had access to the internet, it was a very gray area of what worked and what didn't work.
And I'm most familiar with the veteran community, but I feel from what I've been exposed to, veteran community is what exposed me to doing TRT. Guys that I know that were having troubles mentally and physically, got their hormones checked, got everything looked at, and then we're basically told you have no T, you need to get on this. It's going to help you and change your world. And personally, I would tell you, I don't know exact timeline of how long I've been on it, but I haven't felt any real side effects. I think in the beginning I wasn't necessarily taking my estrogen blocker and the other thing that was supposed to go with it, and I felt a little bit of mood swings.
Your HTC, and do you know why?
As to why I felt the mood swings, I couldn't articulate why. I know it was explained to me, but I'm not smart enough to remember.
So every single steroid, right? And we're not talking about hormone therapy like growth hormone, but every single steroid is practically designed around testosterone. So there are variations of testosterone with different endocrine receptors and how they work inside your body. What usually happens, right, when we talk about roid rage, roid rage generally isn't the use of the steroid. It's when you take a certain amount. Your side effects come from when your body cannot optimally use the hormones you've given it. So you use too much, you haven't found a adequate dose, right? Once that happens, your body can't utilize all of that testosterone. So what it starts doing is it starts converting that testosterone into estrogen. That estrogen is generally why you see guys who break out in pimples. That's what causes it. It's not actually the testosterone that causes that. There could be side effects from testosterone, but generally it's from when it converts into estrogen. That same conversion in estrogen is also the mood swings.
Oh, nice.
Right.
Interesting.
So that's it's some of the things that people have a misconception about when they're taking anything related to steroids, but TRT, as much as in steroids, because it's well documented and it's regulated, you get your compounds are really good. It's not some guy in a garage somewhere ordering a couple of powders from China and kind of mixing it in a big pot in his garage, which it sounds crazy, but that's when you buy the stuff online, right? If you're buying steroids online, you don't know where it comes from.
Yeah.
So you're getting it from medical sources, right? It's good quality. Plus, you have your baseline blood test, which can then regulate how well or how badly you're doing, and then you self-regulate, right? And you have options. You can take there's tablets you can take, there's creams you can use, and then there's injections.
Tablets.
So for everybody, the baseline is different, right? Which is why it's important to take the tests.
Right.
But before you get to the point of going on TRT, what you'll see is, as you talk about veterans, when you start seeing your numbers are down to 200, you're going to get an immediate, within 2 weeks, you will feel an immediate difference when you increase your testosterone through a hormone therapy. Over and above that is simple things like ingesting meat. So eating meat boosts testosterone levels. Go do deadlifts. Your testosterone levels go up by, I think, 4 to 9% just off the deadlifts.
Really?
Lifting heavy weights drives up testosterone.
Yeah, I believe that.
There's different mechanisms. There's supplementation, right? So making sure you take enough zinc, magnesium, D3, K3.
All that stuff I take,
but basically, all the vitamins, that having a good steady diet. Andrew Huberman makes a very good point. For anyone listening if you want to, without going into too much depth, and you want to change your eating plan, right? And you want to optimize it for optimal hormone levels, he gives a very easy baseline, right? So when you eat something, if it's fruits, vegetables, meat, right? As long as all three of those are not processed, right, and are good sources, and you cut everything else, you're going to be good.
Nice.
Right, so it's simply cut everything out except good, straightforward whole food.
Yeah, it's simple.
And once you do that, you will automatically get a natural boost in testosterone. But what happens is, if your testosterones are at a very low level, trying to optimize those things because of the psychological effects on men, because low testosterone comes with depression, cloud and fog, as you say, brain fog, you can't think clearly. There's so many different side effects that come with low testosterone levels.
I live that, and I never thought myself to be a depressed kind of guy or an angry type person, but in reality I actually was both of those things, where I was dealing with these extreme mood swings and they would come from nowhere, and I just felt like it was because I was overworked and just stressed out from work and fatigued from that. But what I'll say, what I remember going through is that fatigue was real, and I could sleep a 10-hour night, which is excessive for me, but a 10-hour night, and I'd wake up just like I never even went to bed.
It's the overtime clock. Some studies suggest that for men, 6 to 7 hours is optimal. That's usually right? My game, 8 hours is almost too much. When you go over that time threshold, you wake up and you're a little bit more tired than when you went in. For women, that threshold is 7 to 9 hours. They need more sleep than we do because of their hormone levels.
Well, I guess my point was just that, it didn't matter how much I slept, I was always tired, right? And it was I would question, do I have sleep apnea? And I would look at it like that, and Sam's like, well, you don't snore ever. I don't know what's going on with that. So I was like, that's interesting. So I finally got the testosterone checked. And the key, though, in my eyes, is that's just part of the equation. The physical fitness aspect of it too helps tremendously.
Yes.
So, again, it's all right, now I put the engine in. Now I'm going to put the right gasoline in too.
Yes.
Right. And so I've got the right engine in the right vehicle. And now I'm putting the right gasoline in, following the right meal plan, doing all the right things. You talked about vitamins and supplements and things like that'll help you stay away from processed food. I was thinking when you were talking about that, if you go back into the early days when the testosterone levels were high, think about what they ate back then. They ate a lot of farm fresh food.
No seed oils. Yeah. Food was very clean, very fresh.
It was actually pasture raised. It was actually legitimate farm raised food. Which is their food was much more pure.
Yeah, which is part of with putting such a controversial guy as RFK, who essentially listen, if you doubt anything from health, right, I'll put up a picture on the podcast, but have a look at our previous HHS secretary, which was a guy that says he was a woman, fat fuck, didn't fucking ever go into a gym. This is the person who's going to tell me how to be healthy. Versus a guy who's RFK, who's in his 70
something.
Right, he
looks amazing.
He's jacked. He looks good. That's the type of person. I will listen to him if he tells me about health. Right.
Totally.
So we're going back to, we're getting that kick back to that. Now, if you're a younger guy, right, I won't recommend that a guy in his 20s and even early 30s gets on TRT. I think getting on TRT when you have the options of naturally boosting it, I think those are the ones that you want to go back to. So from a natural boost standpoint is lift heavy weights, eat clean, consistent food, increase your protein, get enough sleep, get in your vitamins, and you will automatically get that boost in testosterone.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. Over the age of 40, and I'd say pushing towards 45.
Well, can we go back to the age thing real quick? Like, I remember, my 20s and early 30s was very active. And then, I would say like 32-ish is when things really started to slow down for me because of the corporate job.
Yeah.
And like from 32 to 40, I got kind of sedentary where I didn't do a whole lot of movement. And that's when things really like start to go down. So like the more movement that you have in your life, the more you maintain that, the more longevity, the more higher energy, the more natural production that you're going to get for a longer period of time.
Yes.
And this is, again, I'm not a doctor, just from what my own experience was, how I felt, and just knowing the difference. And I love when we see young people in the gym because it's like, hey, maintain this, but when you get married, you have kids and life gets in the way, corporate jobs, whatever.
Then you got to find the balance.
You don't prioritize it anymore.
Yeah. And that is partial of the problem, right? Because you have young kids. The minute you bring kids into the world, right, your daily routine changes. You stop living for you in a big way. You start living for them.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And it's a very important time where you have to don't stop doing the things that are important for you. You can still be there for your kids, but now what happens is the discipline kicks in, right?
Yeah.
Because we offline we spoke about a story where you guys went to Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
Now you're taking the kids there, right? You're taking them to go to get their chicken sandwiches.
Let's be real, we take them there to go to the playground so they can run their little ass off.
Right. But even when you do, let's say you're making food at home, you can't expect them to eat chicken and broccoli, right? You can't expect them to eat your food.
We introduce it to them, but they struggle to eat it.
But you kind of got to do it in a very specific way. Yeah. So you've got to implore that discipline to make sure you're consistent, so that you can keep those numbers up.
Absolutely.
Because as difficult as that discipline is, it's it's the easy road versus the hard road. Right. It is difficult to implement, but it is going to benefit you as you get older.
Right.
By doing those things to keep your natural testosterone as high as possible. You will eventually get to a point, as all people do, regardless of when you were born, where your testosterone levels are going to naturally drop.
Well, I want to go back to the kid thing a little bit, just real fast, where, like, we went to Chick-fil-A, and the decision we made was to eat prior to going to Chick-fil-A and let the kids eat.
Yeah.
Right. We had our meals prior to going. The other thing for me is, like, with kids, we know we have a friend, unfortunately not in our lives anymore, but that friend was on a particular diet plan and tried to enforce her kids to do it. And the kids were, I think, like 10 and like 8, maybe something like that at the time that they tried to do this. And they found one of the kids who was hiding food in his room and like binging on it in the middle of the night because he was hungry because he didn't like what was being given to him, right? And it turned out to be a really bad, disastrous type thing. And Sam was able to educate them on, like, hey, you can't expect your kids to eat the same way you're eating. But what we try to do is we introduce them to foods, and then we talk to them about how we eat and why we eat this way. And then we also talk and educate them about how, like, eating sweets and snacks and candy and all that stuff's bad for you. It's bad for your teeth, and this is what makes you fat, and this is the things that you don't want to do. We talk about how protein is very important. Like our son, you better on our kids, and I think my kids look up to me as well, and my wife, but they really resonate. Every time they see you, they just get elated by it because they see what you look like, and just like, obviously you're just a genuine person with them. And one of the things we use you a lot with them to say, like, do you want big, like with Brandon, do you want big, strong muscles like Mr. Jason? And he's like, I was like, we're like, how do you think you got that? And he's like, you got to eat your protein. I'm like, exactly. You got to eat your protein, and it can't just be cheese. You got to eat meat. Like, and we're like, he's learning to eat steak. He's learning to eat chicken. You're
instilling that thought process of
correct.
This equals that.
Correct. Yeah. And I didn't get that as a kid growing up. And one of the things I've said to my daughter, who's older now and understands a lot more, is like, hey, you have the benefit of parents who are very into health and well-being. Yes. I did not have that. All this was learned when I met mommy, and that's when I started to learn my stuff and gotten better and better. And so just for anybody that might have kids that you're struggling to get them to eat a certain way, like you just have to keep introducing it. We're not perfect at it.
No.
We still have a long ways to go with our kids and their eating journey, but
it's at least the process of, like, as you say, introducing them. You want to let them make their own decisions, but showing that there's a path that they can take. I remember me personally when I was, again, if you grew up in the 80s, 90s, right, is before the internet came along, any idea of what you had to eat or how you need to eat wasn't really available. Like you how much protein do I eat? Which proteins do I eat? Do I add this? So it kind of wasn't. It was available, but not widely. Like the way you
it was hard to find. It was hard to
figure out your shit. You'd have to speak to someone who knows it. Hopefully, they tell you the right thing.
Totally.
You kind of figure out for yourself, right? So I was generally young when I switched over and decided to follow more of a healthy eating plan.
Dude, to just put this in perspective, like you just mentioned how hard it was for us to find information as kids growing up. Just the other day, like there was something that my wife was talking about, where Reagan goes in to the computer room and is like, "Hey Google, I'm looking for XYZ," or whatever she said, and literally spoke to the computer and it searched something for her.
Yes.
And she's like, "Here, Dad, buy this," and I'm like, what the heck? Like we didn't have that as kids. Like, so they're exposed already at 8 years old. She knows how to search for information.
Yeah, and it's that ability to search. Again, it's the virtual world of having the access to information, and the real world of applying the discipline.
Yeah.
In that, because we have access to so much.
That's
and
right.
Instant gratification. You know, if I don't feel like making supper, there's a nice app called DoorDash.
Yeah, right.
I order myself a burger and fries, and it's at my door in 45 minutes.
Pay a few extra bucks, and I got it right.
You know what I mean? So it's that, and it's not very different to when you grew up. I mean, we had fast food.
Yeah.
It's just the accessibility has changed.
Oh yeah.
Right. So
for sure.
It's instilling those disciplines. So I'm going to go through a couple of things that are important if you want to fuel your testosterone level with diets and supplements, right?
Yep.
So meat, beef, oysters, you want zinc and fats. Zinc deficiency slashes your testosterone level by 50%. Now, a little known fact is most people are vitamin D deficient.
Zinc deficiency.
Deficiency slashes your natural testosterone by 50%.
That's interesting.
Right. Now, a lot of people have zinc in their diets, right? They would get it that if you're taking a zinc supplement. Most people don't take supplements. Most of the foods, especially processed foods, do not have them in. If you have a high red meat diet, you're probably getting a good amount of zinc in. But that supplementation is going to help just optimize those levels. Right, saturated fats build cholesterol. This is again where the cholesterol myth comes in. Cholesterol is very important for testosterone synthesis. It helps testosterone develop in the body. Cholesterol is a very important part of your body. Your entire brain is made of cholesterol. So it's optimal fats, optimal beef, getting all of those foods into your diet along with supplementation, because we live in a modern society, our food is processed differently. So you want to try and make sure you optimize those. And the main thing here is ditch soy and ditch sugar. So this is again, we're gonna, in a couple of weeks, we're gonna have a very nice lady that we know from the BNI. She owns a vegan restaurant up the road, right? We're gonna have her in, not to dismiss the idea of veganism, but we talk the reality of what happens when you decide to become vegan. Because and I wouldn't say this is a little known fact, but what a lot of people try and hide, right, when we look at vegan diets, is the bioavailability of protein, right? So if I take a piece of steak, the bioavailability of that protein is very high. I eat it, my body absorbs it, it's in. When you have something like soy, right, that bioavailability drops dramatically, really low. Then what happens is, in order to just make it bioavailable, they have to run it through a processing and add chemicals and all sorts of processing to it. It's still not an optimal protein.
Yeah.
Right. So the problem with soy in general is soy raises estrogen levels. Right.
Interesting.
So as a base protein, so very, like when you walk through any health store, you'll see they've got, when something says plant protein, turn the fuck around and go find the meat protein. Plant protein does not give you what it needs. They have to supplement it, and the amount of processing it goes through makes it the bioavailability drops.
That's a good point. Like how many ingredients are in something like that?
We'd have to pull off. But the problem is the processing. If you're reading a label and there's one word you can't pronounce, walk away.
Right.
But in the same breath, if you're choosing to be vegan because there's an ideology you're following, you truly believe that you don't want to hurt animals, which is a completely different discussion, because getting that particular soy protein onto that label, onto that shelf, killed an entire field of animals. So it's not harm free.
Right.
No matter what anyone wants to think. It's the same as believing that an electric car is saving the planet when some poor African child was killed in a slave camp to mine the cobalt for it.
Yeah, batteries are bad.
Right, so you've got to be realistic. However, my interest base was people who follow a vegan diet, when we get across all the bullshit of why, right? So, I don't care if you're vegan, you don't care if I'm carnivore. However, what I'm interested in is when you follow that vegan diet, right, one, you're going to have to eat a hell of a lot more of that type of protein in order to get enough in, because its bioavailability is so low.
Yeah.
The second thing I'm interested in is, what does that do to your body in regards to the processing in your gut?
Yeah.
Right. I was reading an article the other day which says that vegans fart on average 170 times more than the regular person. Regular. I'm not talking carnivore, right?
Oh, the fiber.
And guys who are on a carnivore diet, right, pass gas on average 60% less, because your body is utilizing it. When it produces gas, then there's other issues going on. So now, if you're choosing to be a vegan bodybuilder, or you're training, or you're a vegan in total, like my interest base is, how do you overcome those problems? Which is fine, it's a choice. But for me, if you want optimal testosterone levels, soy is not your friend. Sugar is not your friend. You have to move around that. And then supplement stacks. You need to get at least 5,000 IUs.
Well, real quick, let me just a couple thoughts around I dabble with like the vegan thing for like, I just did like a plant-based thing for like 2 days because I watched a documentary. This is probably 4 or 5 years ago. And I was like, well, I'll give it a little bit of a whirl, but I'm still going to eat chicken and fish. Yeah. And I still ate eggs. That was the other thing I still ate. And I lasted 2 days on it. I was like, this is like, I'm not getting...
You feel terrible.
No, I did not feel good. And I think like, we are very much adamant about like, do what works for you. But like, to me, I just really struggle to comprehend or understand why. And that's why I'm anxious for Danielle to join us, but like how that's actually healthy for you. I know there's science and study that have probably shown that it is.
There isn't. Okay, my opinion is I've read the studies because I'm very interested in the dynamics of it. The studies I've read are paid for by companies like Beyond Meat. Realistically, plant-based is not the way to go, because I've said this before in the podcast, is I can optimally survive just eating meat. Yeah, I will die if I just eat plants. Right? I'm not making this up. This is the truth. When you choose this route, and here's the thing: is I'm more interested in your choice of why you do it and then how you navigate it. Right? But for optimal health, veganism is not optimal. It's a choice you're making, and that's fine. You make that choice, you put it on yourself. I'm grateful. If you're doing it, I have all the respect in the world for you, right? But it's not optimal health. Yeah. Now, if you said to me vegetarian, you can be a vegetarian, and vegetarians eat eggs, they eat fish, right? There's a difference there, because that makes a little bit more sense, because a vegetarian diet, if you take out lamb, right, so those type of meats, it's basically a Mediterranean diet. Right, and those diets are actually really good for you. There's people that work very well for you.
I've seen the Mediterranean diet. That's like beans and stuff too, right? Yeah, a lot of beans in the Mediterranean.
And some of those beans are good, but again, there's all sorts of effects. Now, if you choose to go down that route, that's great. I have no judgment on that, but I'm very interested in the mechanisms of how you actually overcome them. And I feel a lot of vegans are maybe captured too much by the ideology of being a vegan. I feel a lot of times it comes across as a cult. And I'm not interested in your cult. I'm interested in understanding that when you eat that way, what do you really go through? What does your day look like? From an honest perspective. Choosing to do it, I'll have a lot of respect for you, but I want to hear how that works.
Well, and I'm interested to have Danielle on. I watched her segment about, I think it was last week, she was on the Fox 13, I forget his name all of a sudden, the main guy that goes around town. Forgive me for forgetting that, because he's pretty popular. But anyway, her segment, she acknowledged. I never realized she acknowledged this, but she said for the longest time she had comfort vegan food in her restaurant, not healthy.
Yeah.
And I always was under the impression that a lot of folks were like people that I knew that would eat at a restaurant, and I've had some food there because like I've done some stuff with Danielle, and the food tastes good. Like I've never had anything in there that doesn't taste good.
Yeah, it's not. You can make anything taste good with the right process.
But what I was experiencing is this. There's like some of the folks that would go in. It was as if they had and I'm not going to say any names or call anybody out, but like it was like they had this perception that they ate there, so it was healthy because it's vegan.
Yeah, it's the marketing trick.
But the reality is like it's all like there was a lot of deep fried French fries, sweet potato fries, delicious, tasted good,
tastes great.
But again, deep fried, and then a lot of cheese incorporated in some of the stuff. And it's vegan based, and then you had like bread and butters and things like that, and it's like. Again, whole foods, like certain aspects of like, I'm not going to dispute that some of that can be healthy in nature, but however,
an apple can be healthy in its own right, but
right.
Again, we're talking about a complete optimal diet versus certain foods. Now,
well, a really quick point, the last point I want to make about this, I don't want to move on, but like, I know of somebody who basically did an all like vegan meal prep, approach to getting healthy and back in shape. And I would see this person and I would say, hey, like I would highly recommend actual protein, like meat. Yeah. Like you're a man, you need meat. And I recently seen him and he's evolved a little bit away from it. He's eating, some chicken and fish, but it's like, I just believe men, we live this, like red meat is critical to our thriveliness. Let's use that word.
Yep. And you're correct, but going back to how you said people have a perception of veganism is healthy. It's the marketing trick. It's the psyop, right? It's the same reason as I remember when gluten came out, right? And gluten-free and everything's gluten-free. Everyone had this idea that gluten-free was fat-free, right? And then in the same breath, when they brought out fat-free, everyone thought fat-free was healthy, which it's not.
Nope.
And then the same breath, you know what I mean? I remember when they came out with a keto diet, and and I remember the idea of the keto diet. These foods you can eat as much as you want, like. That's still calories in, calories out. You can still, and then you start seeing these people get on these diets and they're eating these enormous amounts of food, which in the right amounts could be good for you. But then, like, do yourself a favor. And this is not to shit on veganism. This is just as bad on keto, right? Yeah. Go to any store, take a keto bar, turn that sucker around, start reading the ingredients and the processing that goes through in order to make it, right? You cannot pronounce 19 of the words on there. It's the same as you were talking about Chick-fil-A. The Chick-fil-A sandwich, their primary sandwich they sell. Yeah. Right. It has bread, lettuce, mayonnaise, chicken, and bread on it.
Listen, Joe Rogan eats Chick-fil-A. Yeah. Therefore,
but he still knows it. But he tells you it's shit. The thing is,
but it is delicious.
It's got 50 ingredients. Right. 50 fucking ingredients. Yeah. Now here's the thing: is as you say, it might be delicious, but ask questions beyond that. And going back to your point this is where people have the misconception. They've sold us the idea that plant-based saves the earth, right? It doesn't. Or it saves animals. It doesn't. It probably kills more animals per animal than anything else, right? It's the idea that you're doing this thing that's above you. So what happens is it creates almost like a cult-like effect. I'm better than you because I'm vegan. No, what you're doing is you're giving yourself the impression that you are, but you're not actually looking at it from the baseline. Yeah, it's trying to break these things down, and there's been this big move of going over to it, and. When you speak to Bill Gates, wants everybody to go on plant-based diet, right? The guy that I want to look like the least in the fucking world is telling me I must go on a plant-based diet. First of all, fuck you. Yep. Second thing is...
He wants to depopulate the earth, though. So.
But then again, look at where he puts his money in. He puts his money into all of those stocks that do that. He doesn't give a shit about the earth. He doesn't give a crap about humanity. He cares about money. Right. So when we break that down is understand that you need to take a conscious effort. The same as we've now, since COVID, we have to take accountability for what decisions we make in regards to our health. What is our doctor telling? Do we just, if I go to my doctor and he says, well, here's a needle with 50 different things in, I'm just going to give it to you. I'm going to just let him do it. I'd like to ask a couple of questions about what's inside this needle. Yeah. These are the type of things that you need to do with everything.
Hopefully with RFK now, we're going to get more people questioning doctors and asking why I'm taking all that, because I feel like there's a culture that we've created in this country where we just listen to a doctor and do what they tell us and not actually question it. The other thing you mentioned on some of these diet plans that are out there, about how some of them will just say, oh, eat as much as you want and you can do this, or like I think it's Jenny Craig does like the point system or something like that. Here's what we talk about often, and like there's a guy that's going through this with us now. Habits. Habits are critical to what you're doing in your journey of fitness and health and well-being, because if you have bad habits as a child growing up of you could eat anything and everything in sight, and you never, like, this was my story. I ate everything in sight and I never put any weight on. I was just a small kid that could eat like crazy. I was always hungry because I was always playing sports, and my metabolism was like through the roof and would burn it all off. Later in life, those same eating habits cost me a lot of problems. So you have to have habits that are really good habits, and teaching like what we're teaching our kids of like, mom and dad aren't always around, so making good decisions in food, making good decisions on what you eat, and understanding why you eat what you eat, and looking at the back of boxes and seeing what the ingredients are, why we shouldn't eat that, and what the purpose of us doing this is.
Based on what's happened to our society, the United States is the sickest society of people, physically sick, chronically ill, of every Western society on earth, right? Yet we want to follow the same medical system without question. It's insanity.
It totally is.
But when you pop it on the flip side, right, the reason you want to start reading these things, taking accountability is everything that I've gone through. You want to optimize your system, right? So supplementation is next. You've got to take vitamin D3. We do not get in the sun enough. You need 5,000 IUs
and we live in Florida. I mean, look how much sun we get compared to everybody else. We still don't get enough.
And you still don't get enough, right? And a deficiency of vitamin D3 is a 25% discount deficient testosterone levels, right? You've got to look at these precursors and how they actually work. So what you want to do is you want to consistently work on these things till you find a baseline where you feel good. Now, as we know, is testosterone level drops, right? I want to switch over to testosterone and hormone levels in women. Because an interesting fact, right? When women go on diets, right? You'll speak to a lot of women. My wife's one of them. She will follow an eating plan, and that eating plan may work for the first couple of weeks, but then, depending on the calories in, calorie out, it doesn't work the same as it does for men, right? The reason for that is because their hormone levels, whether it be their
way different,
right? Whether it be their estrogen levels, right? Progesterone levels, testosterone levels, right? And a big one for women is their thyroid hormones, right? Are they overproducing or they're underproducing? Are they what is their cortisol levels, right? So based on all of these hormonal checks, a woman who goes on a diet, she might go to the diet, she might lose 5 pounds, and all of a sudden she stays on the same food and then she picks up 3 pounds. It's because your hormone levels are out of whack. So it's very important for people, for optimal health, from a biohacking standpoint, understand where your levels are, and then find those optics within the level, right? And then once you found that, and it's not easy, right? You're going to have to do research, you're going to have to try and understand the numbers, you're going to try and have to look at information in a very different and systematic way. But the benefit is, once you understand those dynamics, you can find your optimal playground. And it's like I've said to everyone, I think everybody should find what works for them. Follow certain guidelines, right? Like my guideline for everybody, depending on blood cell, I would say carnivore diet's a good place to start. Eliminate everything else. Start with meat. It's optimal. It keeps you in good health. And then start adding and moving away and trying to see what works, right?
I think, and something that people struggle with, and I know like my friend that's going through stuff like with his changes, the hunger, I don't know if I'd say pains, but like hunger cravings, I guess, is what occurs. But if you're somebody who's just getting on a plan, you're just changing your ways, you can eat meat and the hunger cravings, and it's a good choice. You know, when you're struggling, like just grab a little more steak, grab something like a can of tuna. Like eating meat will take that craving away to go grab some shit.
But it's also breaking the dynamic, right? Because when you're used to something, it's breaking and reestablishing habits and reestablishing patterns. So again, as always, the first 14 days is fundamental. If you can last for 14 days, you'll change habits. If you can do that for 30 days, you can change your lifestyle. And it's a process for everybody, but it's important that there's got to be sacrifice, right? You have to be able to take a little bit less and go through a couple of pains to find that optimal range. And once you have that optimal range, you can then start lining it up, find what works for you. And I feel like a lot of people out there who are listening and living their lives like, well, I don't have time for that. All right.
Yeah, you do.
But in the same breath, you seem to have time to complain about your health, to go to a doctor, spend a hell of a lot of money on medical bills.
Yeah.
Find mechanisms that allow you to live the best day-to-day life.
Yeah, that's such a good point. Like, if you think about, like, how many people have we heard, like, just, complain about ailments and, I got the doctor visits and there are all these different, doctor appointments every week. And that part, like, the cost alone and the energy alone to have to go through all that, where if you were just eat well and go work out, that would change so much. Like, I would much rather spend my time in the gym and meal prepping and choosing to eat wisely, taking the right supplements, so that I can prolong my health and well-being, because, like, my goal is to never be on a script. There's a lot of people that have to take them every single day just to survive, and I don't want to ever be that guy. The other thing, I think, a point to make on these supplements, like, the single ingredient stuff is way better than the blend of stuff. Taking things like, like you're taking vitamin D, that's the only thing that you're taking with that particular vitamin. Like, single ingredient stuff is really important.
And one that's not on here that I think is important to add is, I think quercetin, right, is a very important supplement. It goes very well with zinc. The dynamic of how it changes your immune system and response, because that's one of the things you're gonna struggle with when you start the training regime and you go on trying to keep yourself in optimal health, right, and keep your immune system high is very important. And it's work, right? And I'd say from a baseline, eat like a hunter, right? Live like a warrior, and your health will be optimal, right? Like, we rolled with Robbie in his jiu-jitsu class at Brandon Gracie last week, and I can tell you now, if you're not someone who wants to go to the gym, go roll. Like, the pure force of being on that mat and rolling in, that'll drive your testosterone levels up, right? It's being active and using your body in those ways.
Well, you and I was actually just telling this to Sam last night. I love lifting weights.
Yes.
I truly enjoy it. Like, for me, I don't know why I like it so much, but I just do, right? For me personally, like, that's fun for me. I've always been that way. Unfortunately, that's what bothered me so much when I was in the corporate world. I wasn't able to go do something that I truly enjoyed doing, or I didn't prioritize it. Let's say that. So maybe that's not you. Then do, like you said, jiu-jitsu, do rolling, do, like, for females, do Zumba classes, like, do stuff that is active, that keeps your body moving. Like, there's some elderly folks in our neighborhood, and I have seen, I think there's 3 of them. Unfortunately, I think 1 or 2 of them have passed, but they would walk the neighborhood every single day for a good 45 minutes to an hour. And they, like, one of the guys, I think, was like 85, 90 years old, still doing it. Yeah. And it's just that movement of your body. It's so critical.
Which again then now takes me to the next part of what we're talking about, right? First part is optimizing your testosterone levels as a man, right? Your options would being is you have natural ways that you can biohack, supplementation, diet, exercise, or you can go the hormonal route where you get a supplementation of hormones which helps you get to those optimal levels. Yeah. But in the same breath, I feel like strength training has changed dramatically in 2025 where we are now, right? Because you can't just be the person who just does powerlifting or just does bodybuilding or just lifts in one particular way. And here's the thing, there's nothing wrong with them. Like, powerlifters are amazing, bodybuilders are amazing, strongmen are amazing, like, all of them in their right are amazing, but those movements are specific to an outcome of a sport. Bodybuilding movements are designed to maximize muscle size, eventually maximize muscle density, so that when you cut your body fat down, you look good, you get on stage, and then based on that look and the look of you get judged on it. Powerlifting is about moving a weight. They don't give a shit how you look. It's about moving a weight from one side to the other. Strongman's a little bit more dynamic in the movements, but I feel for optimal strength training, right, for anyone again listening, is moving your body in ways that are almost unnatural to what you're doing, right? And when I say unnatural, it's finding ways to move your body that makes your joints, your hips, your knees, your ankles, your wrists, your elbows move in a way that makes mobility more consistent.
I remember one of the first times we did a not goofy workout, but like we did the somersaults in the gym, and you're like, all right, we're gonna do a somersault today. We're like, what? Like, okay, stop joking around. Then we actually, we did do them, but like, And then that was that last week. We did the little spin thing and just moving our bodies in unique ways. And what was cool is like when we rolled last week with the jiu-jitsu guys, one of the young guys, like we after he tapped me, he was sitting over on the side of the mat. He's like, "Hey, bro, how old are you?" I was like, "I'm 43." And he's like, "Dude, that's awesome." Yeah. Like he was shocked that like at 43, I'm moving around like that, and not that I was moving that good, but like.
Yeah, but it's taken in. Is the thing is we went into a jiu-jitsu, right? So I've done some rolling.
I've never done it.
You've never done it, right?
Mm-hmm. Army combatives, but that was it.
And again, I'm proficient enough, that as Robbie was saying, 6 months of jiu-jitsu, and you're going to be above 90% of the population because you've got a good understanding of how to move. But the guys we rolled against, we were talking about high level,
unreal,
right? Really good guys.
Yep, really good guys.
And the fact of the matter is, every single one of them was younger than us.
Yes,
right. And we were there. We were there in the capacity to showcase what they could do, specifically against a bigger opponent.
Yeah.
But with that said, I'd invite any one of those guys to come have a workout.
Yeah.
Right. And come do the things we do in the gym. And how I believe, and this is my personal philosophy of how I think weight training should be. Find weight training that tests your limits in different ways. Mm-hmm. Always emphasize grip strength.
Yeah.
Always emphasize leg strength. Right. Be mobile. Find ways to move your body in different positions in different ways with weight. And instead of focusing on getting on a treadmill and walking for 40 minutes, pull a sled around.
Yep.
Pull a rope around. Like, find ways to move your body differently. And a study that came, I'm not sure of the exact study, but what it said is leg strength directly correlates with mortality, right? So how long you live, right? And I remember making a joke like, well, then I'm going to keep my legs strong and we can be immortal.
Yeah.
Just never stop squatting and leg pressing, will be fine.
Right.
But there's real science behind that, because as you age, after the age of 50, the first muscles that kind of atrophy or really start breaking down your body are your quads, right? Your legs.
Well, and I thought about, like, when you told me this originally, like, slips, trips, and falls are one of the biggest killers for elderly.
Yeah.
And if you I know my mother has fallen, and I had a slip in the garage I've talked about in the previous episodes. But when I got to that place where like my body was hurting often, I was struggling. I remember finding myself going like, God, if I were to fall, like that would hurt. I'd be in rough shape. Now, like, I'm not afraid of falling at all, because I know, one, I'm strong, but I've been moving like unique ways for quite some time now that it's helped me be much more agile and capable of those movements.
And that's the word you're using there. It's agile, flexible, strong, cardiovascular, right? Like, all these things need to come together. So when you're, it's always good to start with a standard weight training program, right? I go 4 days a week. I train muscle groups together. I'll do chest and triceps. I'll do back and biceps. I'll do quads and hamstrings together, and then I'll go in and I'll do back and calves, right? Or I'll find a variation that works.
Yep.
And then 5 by 5 exercises, 5 sets.
Yep.
10 to 15 reps, right? And that's a great program. Like, you can do that program, you get great results from it. But I find as you get into this, especially with us that are in our 40s, what you want to start doing is you want to start finding mobility exercises, right? That's why we incorporate sleds. That's why we do overhead carries with barbells. That's why we there was a day the other day where we were doing frog jumps. Yeah. We were doing leopard crawls on the floor, because I want to move my body in every way possible. And then, if possible, I want to add weight to that. Right. It drives up your cardiovascular. Your heart rate is working at a high rate. You're moving your body in new positions. And for you who came with injuries or past injuries, right? They've healed up, but you haven't recovered. Right. You didn't have the recovery. What's happened now is, we had a workout the other day where you got in a hack squat and you had 4 plates aside. Yeah. Right. And you were down. You went all the way down.
Oh, this crazy,
is something that if I told you do this a year ago, you told me there's no fucking way.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of the philosophy I have. And when you go into the gym, it's not just about moving weight. It's about dynamically moving weight in a way that tests your body, not just your strength, your flexibility, your mobility, your cardiovascular system, right? Because those tests will come back, as we saw, right? As much as rolling with those black belts was a difficult process, the one thing I wasn't at the end of the session was tired.
Yeah, right. I wasn't either, actually.
Right. We
I mean, I was like fatigued, if you will, but I
wasn't gassed.
I was not as gassed as some of our workouts.
Yeah,
if I'm being honest.
So even there is, it translated enough for us to be able to sit and roll. Now I can tell you from experience, the first time I went to jiu-jitsu and I wasn't conditioned and I didn't have the cardiovascular health that I had now and the dynamic training, I was gassed in 5 minutes. Like that first roll, I was looking in all together, you and me rolled about 25 minutes each.
Did we really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Right. And in that this is physically moving around, trying to get position. If you have never done this before and you go try this, you are not going to make it. It is probably one of the most brutal exercise regimes.
Yeah. Is
rolling on a mat.
I found like we used a lot of hand and arms, if you will. Like for us, I think, because you probably use your legs more than I did because you're experienced. But like for me personally, like I was using my hands and my grip strength and trying to just muscle them a little bit, just because I felt like that was my only chance of survival. So for me the next day, I was sore in my elbows.
Yeah.
But I've always had elbow issues anyway.
Yeah.
So like that was the worst I had. And I rested on purpose just because I was due a rest day. We had trained pretty hard that week. Well, kind of hard the day before we rested somewhat. But like Saturday I was sore, but not like I still got up. I did everything that I needed to do. There was no real issues. And then Sundays I was back to training. And
this is the purpose of the type of training we do, is that when we go and do something completely out of our comfort zone.
Yeah.
I recovered. I was the next day I was a little bit sore and it was fine.
I definitely, honestly, I could have trained, but like we were running to the other side of the coast that day, so I didn't necessarily make it I could have done it, but like I was probably more sleep tired than I was or anything because I was so energized from that night that I couldn't go to bed. But.
So, and that's the point, right? So it's finding those dynamic ways of doing strength training, but also doing mobility training, flexibility training, cardiovascular training, and then trying to incorporate them into different aspects.
I think we're both very flexible people, like meaning flexible, like our muscle flexibility. Like we stretch a decent amount. I probably could stretch more, but like we do a lot of stuff to just like focus on using our body in unique ways, and that to me is longevity as well.
And what's important to me is imagine you're someone out there, because I'll tell you now, even in the groups, Robbie's within our BNI, right? And I can tell you now, within our BNI, almost no one else will go do what we did.
Yep.
Right. Not because I think they're cowards, they can't, because they know they're going to get hurt.
Yeah.
Right. And not that any of those black belts are going to go out to hurt them. No. It's just that physical challenge is too much.
Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, we invite everyone to train with us, and we don't get many takers on that.
So my honest feeling on that is the type of life I want to live. I want to be at any point ready. If someone says to me, "Listen, do you want to go try kickboxing?" Yep, I'll be there tomorrow.
Yeah, let's do it.
Right. I've never kickboxed before, but I'm fit enough to run the process and get the most out of it.
I'm going to arrange that, by the way.
Right.
We're Muay Thai.
I love to go do it. Right. That's the reason I train the way how we train. This is my personal philosophy.
Yeah.
I am at any time ready. If someone calls me tomorrow and go, "Listen, do you want to go do a 5K run for charity?" Sure. I'll be okay. I'll be fine. I can do it. I'll run 5K and I'll be fine afterwards. Right. Yeah. Do you want to, we spoke about going to do the tactical labs. Do you want to go? Yeah, I'll be fine. Right. I want to be ready at all points to be able to just jump into anything.
Well, but I think something that they respected, like I had a couple messages from the stories that I posted about our roles. I actually had a lot of messages from people outside, like friends. But anyway, the black belts, basically, I'm just stereotyping that they're all black belts that we rolled with because it's bigger in my head.
They weren't all black belts, but all of them were damn good.
Yeah, they were all really, really good, way better than me. But like a couple of different messages from them was like, "Hey, we thank you guys for your demeanor, like how we came in there humble and just respected them, and weren't in there to try to prove anything." And to me, like, I think that's powerful when we can respect one another's craft. Yes. And I can look at you and be like, "Hey, to be honest with you, I have no desire to ever do jiu-jitsu. It's just not my personal preference. However, I respect the hell out of it.
Yes.
And think those guys are incredible. They're wonderful human beings.
Yep.
And I will always give them the props that they deserve because of how hard they work." And that goes for so many different lanes. And that's one of the things that I think is, just I think special with us. And like you've said, like we got some like comments, if you will. We'll leave it at that. it reflects more on that individual's brokenness than ours.
Yeah, anybody who wants to have a negative comment about going to try something that you've never done is, one, they wouldn't do it, and two, their ego is in their way.
Yeah, for sure.
I have nothing, as you said, but respect for someone else who has got a skill set behind mine.
Yeah.
I understand that skill set. Now, and as I said to you, we haven't really gone over it, and we're gonna get Robbie in, and we're gonna do a podcast on that actual Nights of Rolling. He's going to explain to us what we did wrong, how the process worked, how they tapped us out.
We do some video analysis there.
A little bit of video analysis so we can kind of break it down.
That's going to be embarrassing.
But the point being is most people are not humble enough to put themselves in a position where we go, well, I want to showcase what you can do because I understand what you do, I cannot do.
And to be fair to myself on this, like I wasn't always in this space. Like there was a pride ego thing for me for a very long time where I wouldn't do anything that I wasn't good at.
Yeah.
Because I would go into it and be like, well, I got to be the best at whatever I did. And if I wasn't good at it, I wouldn't do it because my ego wouldn't let me do it.
But that's also part of growth, right? That's as you grow, you start being comfortable in your own skin, realizing that doesn't matter what anyone else does. It doesn't make you less, right? Is I'm very comfortable with who I am and what I can do. I know what my capabilities are. I have nothing to prove to them, but I'm very happy to walk in there as a student, go in and a show, because for me this is all about showcasing how effective Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is. As a sport which was designed to show the difference between a smaller opponent overcoming a bigger opponent. And when you don't have the skill set that those guys have, they'll overcome you.
Well, if I'm being honest, if I ever were finding myself in a skirmish with Robbie because I did something dumb to get him mad at me, I'm just going to take off and run because I don't want him to get a hold of me. Because I'm in trouble if he does.
But then in the same breath, you talk about the demeanor of Robbie. He's such a professional and level that he is. That he's there. But you make a good point. Is he will avoid a fight to a large degree because he understands what violence is.
I would too.
So it's. And it was a ton of fun.
But I think it's those guys are the respect thing, right? That's 100% on board with. Like, it was a blast, and like trying new things is really like in anybody. Like, kind of getting back into what we're talking today. Like, the fitness journey of life is like a year or two ago. If you would have said to me like, "Hey, we're gonna go roll jiu-jitsu," I'd be like, "No, I'm not," because I was worried. I was worried about getting hurt or injury. But look at by me being in shape and being healthy and fit. What I just got to do. How fucking cool. Like, one of my buddies that's a former Marine up in North Carolina has followed Robbie for years and knows how great he is and was like, bro, you got to roll with him? I was like, I was like, I no disrespect to Robbie. I had no idea how great he is in that circuit.
He's not in our purview. Yeah, but their world is different to our world.
But it's just like the opportunity that I had to go do that was simply because of what we do and how we train and stay healthy and fit. And like, look what the door that opened us. And there's so many things like you've talked in general, like I've experienced it now too, is like just being healthy and fit opens doors, being conscious of your health. It's like, I promise you, it's just like the guy that started with us this week. I told him, I'm like, bro, listen, I promise you, when you get yourself in shape and you look good in the mirror, it will never make you sad.
No, it's that. There's nothing that will break a man like not having self-confidence in your physical abilities. And and people could misunderstand what I'm saying. It's not about you being overcoming or dominating someone else. No. It's purely that I know that I am capable and going into any situation. Like, I love the fact, and this is, again, why I train the way I train. I love the fact that if my wife phones me and says, listen, we're going to go paddleboarding, right? Okay. And if I've never done it before, I'll be fine. We're going to go do all these things we've never done before. So we're going to go skydiving. I'll be fine. There is nothing physical you'll throw at me that I won't look at and go, sure, let's go do it. Mm-hmm. Because that's how I want to train. That's how I want to live. I want to be mobile. I want to be healthy. I want to be cardiovascular healthy. I want to make sure that from a longevity standpoint, and again, it's not about living forever. It's about every day that I wake up. Mm-hmm. I want to feel that my body worked the previous day. There's nothing worse for me than waking up and not feeling that I did something the day before.
Well, and like one of the things that like kills me, like going to the grocery store or just places and you see someone that's basically the same age as us and they look like they're 20 years older, 10 years older, whatever, because they just struggle to move, they're overweight, they're obese. And like, I just see that and I'm like, God, thank God I made a change.
Yeah.
Like, thank God I woke up and realized, like, this is not okay. And I attribute a lot of that to my wife, because she was like, she did not accept where I was heading.
Yeah.
And like, I also realized, like, there's got to be better. And I decided that enough was enough. And I feel that so many people make too many, like, we've had people that come to us and say they want help, and we offer the help for free, and we see who sticks it out and who doesn't. And that's okay. But like, you can tell who's serious, because when you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, you'll actually do something about it, you know, and that otherwise it's just lip service, you know. And like, if you just make the change, like, I promise you won't regret it, but you have to make the habits and lifestyle choices and do like some of these things that are just consistency habits, you know.
And again, you know, when we're talking about the person we see in the grocery store, and, you know, we can see that they're struggling with their health. Make no mistake, we're rooting for you.
Yeah.
All we want for you, listen, the happiest thing I heard in the last 2 years was when I heard RFK talk about ending the chronic disease epidemic, bringing people back to health. Right, I want to see people. I'm rooting for you. Now, when we walk in the gym, and there's a lot of guys in our gym, and you can see it. They've just started training, and I see them day in and day out. Right, and it's like nothing else. Right, it's, you know, I'll go back to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. You start as a white belt. Like most guys who go to black belt, it takes those guys 10 to 15 years. It's a commitment, right?
Yeah, big deal.
Weight training and health has a very similar aspect, because you can start and you won't lose a pound.
That's right.
You won't see a muscle. You'll feel like crap. You'll be
hurting really bad for a while.
You'll go like this for months. But then, like everything else, everything starts aligning, and then eventually it switches.
Well, if I can make a point about when you said we're all rooting for you, the guy that came with us, again, protecting him, but I had a phone call with him last night. And one of the things I said to encourage him was, I said, do you realize that the last 2 days were the first things that Sam, because Sam was in the gym at the same time as us, but the first things that Sam said is, hey, how did he do?
Yeah.
Do you realize that the first thing that Jason said yesterday when he called me after our training session, one of the first things out of his mouth was, hey, how did he do?
Yeah.
He's like, really? I'm like, bro, we are pulling for you.
It's massive.
We want you to do this. And he's like, he told me, he's like, his strength isn't there. He's like, he hasn't worked out. He hasn't lifted weights in probably a decade. Yeah. And he's like, I didn't feel judged whatsoever. I'm like, bro, you'll never. No. I was like, you know where we'll judge? We'll judge you if you give up on yourself.
Yeah, if you quit, that's my judge though. Like, if you come in there and you give 100%,
and he did.
I don't give a shit who you are, where you. I don't care about anything else. If you go in there and you give maximum effort, I am going to be fucking right behind you, rooting you on all the way. That's what counts.
Right. We don't want, like we just know how good life is when you're healthy, and so we're putting these things out there because we want others to have this same thing. And this is generational stuff. Like, think about the kids and the people you can influence and the people that just come around based on us putting this stuff out here.
And again, you know, start with the simple things, right? I'll go over them again as we close off. Is one, always just cut out processed foods, cut out sugars.
Yeah.
Keep it natural, keep it simple. From there, naturally the progression is, when you start this process, you'll also start the process of research, the process of understanding and getting more involved into what you're doing. That'll then give you knowledge, and that knowledge will carry through.
Can I say something that was profound for me with when Robbie was on here and he was talking about the black belts in jiu-jitsu?
Yeah.
Like, it blew my mind when he basically said, what makes you a black belt in jiu-jitsu is that you master 5 moves.
Yeah.
And that was like, holy shit, that makes so much sense. And the way I would tie it to what we do is, if someone is trying to figure out, like, okay, I don't have the money or the financial ability to hire a professional to help me get where I need to be. Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff on the internet, but you know what? Master a few things.
Yeah.
So if you're a picky eater, I was a picky eater, and we basically found what would I eat.
Yeah.
And then I stuck to that. And it was just a few things, right?
And it changes everything.
It changed everything, because then it taught me, oh wait, you like that 30-day thing we talked about. It taught me that I can control the food. I can control the kitchen.
Yes.
And that was empowering. And then I've just only gotten better.
You're overcoming those mental blocks that everyone has. And regardless is, again, I've had people come train with us, You're an ex-athlete, so when you started, you weren't near the strength level you are now.
Right.
But your strength level increased dramatically as we carried on, right? To a point now that, you're stronger than 95% of people out there.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you walk in there and you start, I don't care if you start with 1 pound.
Yeah.
I don't care what you do. Just start.
That's right.
Move your body. Move the process. Just get close to that goalpost. Always try and find the mechanisms to keep going and keep going back. And then
you versus you.
Do it again tomorrow, and then do it again the next day, and just keep going and just keep going back. And you will see that come back. And it's not about the six-pack. It's not about the end goal.
Right.
When you really realize that journey going through of how you got there, and I think everybody when you get past that goal-setting orientation, right? Because we're so overly focused on the goal.
Mm-hmm.
The woman goes, I want to lose 20 pounds. So the minute she hits that 20-pound block, I've now lost 20 pounds. Everything that was driving her forward is gone.
Yeah.
But when you look back as, what did I do to lose that 20 pounds? What did I gain from it? What did I learn from it? And if you're overly focused on the goal and you don't appreciate that journey, you're going to fail.
Well, I in the phone call last night, one of the things that I mentioned, I said, I asked him, and you know this about me, but I was like, when I'm in the gym, it was like, you're with us and you watch us work, and what do you think is in my head as I'm in this process? And he's like, well, you look like you're incredibly focused. I'm like, yeah, both of us, right? He's like, yeah, you guys just look, you're intense and you're incredibly focused. I said, right. But you know what we're really incredibly focused on? The mind and muscle connection for each and every rep that we do.
Yes.
And it's only about that rep.
Yeah.
And I'm not thinking about the end of the workout. I'm not thinking about how many sets or how many total reps. I'm focused on I know if my goal is a 25 rep set, I'm getting as many of reps as I can, quality reps.
Yes.
And what I said to him, you'll appreciate this, is he played ball too. He played baseball back in his day. And I said, well, what did baseball teach you? And he's like, well, baseball, I hated failure. It taught me that failure is not an option, et cetera. Push on. I said, okay. I said, well, let me ask you a question. What did I tell you in the gym yesterday and about that rep when you were failing? And you taught me this. I was like, when we were working arms yesterday, and I said, you hit that point of failure, and then what'd you do? I said, you had to push for a couple more reps, right? And he's like, yeah. And I said, and what did I say to you? He's like, that those were the most important reps.
Yes.
And I said, right, because that's when the most growth happens, right? And he's like, yeah. And I said, so then why do you live your life afraid of failure?
Yeah.
And he's like,
you only truly ascend once you believed you've hit failure, and then you drive past that point is where growth happens.
I'm getting chills thinking about this, but I literally said to him last night, I'm like, dude, the dumbbells don't lie. That failure when the dumbbells is a gift to you.
Yes.
It's the same translation in life.
Yeah.
And he's had some heartaches in relationship, and I'm like, dude, it sucks. I feel it. Trust me, I know. But that failure in those relationships is a gift for you.
Yes.
And if you look at failure, whether that's in business, in life, whatever, it sucks. But if you treat it like a gift,
it changes.
It unlocks so much.
It unlocks growth.
Yeah.
Whether it be muscle growth in the gym, whether it be knowledge growth within business, failure is not what people think it is. I've heard many people have a conversation. They go, I'm a failure. Okay, what does that mean?
Right.
We're all failures.
Right.
No successful person on earth got successful by not failing. They all failed. They failed multiple times. They went through everything you went through in different ways. Failure builds endurance.
That's right.
Failure builds growth. It's where growth starts. Dorian Yates has a really good. So his mindset on training was going to the gym. Right, and he would do lower sets. Right, Mike Mentor had a very similar way of training, and the idea is in a short amount of sets, you put in so much effort that you work your muscle to absolute failure.
Interesting.
Because at the point of failure is where growth happens.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's at that point where you kind of push past. Because if you're just doing the same thing and rotating and not ever hitting that point, whether this be in business, life, relationships, or in the gym, or on a jiu-jitsu mat, the same thing applies. If you don't test yourself past certain limits, you will never ever see if you can exceed them.
That's right. Yeah, and you have to learn from it. Robbie talked about this. If you put a move and you fail, and you don't learn from that move, and you figure out what that person did so that you can do something different the next time. like the failure is a gift if you learn from it. You have to assess and then do something a little bit different. But if you keep doing the same old thing, then you are stuck in that cycle.
Yeah.
You are
and we don't want to be stuck in cycles. So I think for this episode, we want to focus on everybody to understand the importance of hormone levels, testosterone, male or female.
Yeah.
If you're not sure, if you're feeling, like you said, mind fog, you feel like you just can't get ahead, you're super tired, and you've started putting your diets into place and you're just not getting the results, go have your bloods taken.
That's right.
Have a hormone check done and make sure that your levels are optimal.
I want to make sure we say too, like, if you should really go through a doctor to do that, because you want to make sure if you got anything going on in your medical history that that's and that's a good point. At no point, I mean, I don't know how it works here in the States, but I don't think you can really go do a medical test just often. Do it through the proper right.
There's lots of hormone clinics. They'll do a good test for you. They'll give you good baselines.
Yeah.
When you get it, use a doctor, but also go research yourself and try and understand what your numbers mean. Mm-hmm. Right? It's very easy to plug them in and have a look at what they mean, and then try and understand those levels and how to optimize them.
Yeah.
Diet, exercise, supplementation can help. Hormone therapy helps as well. But again, you want your testosterone to drive to the roof, go do a fucking deadlift. Pick up a weight. Pick up something that's heavy. Pick it up off the floor. Do it repeatedly, and your testosterone's going to spike.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Optimize those levels. And for the guys listening in, we always talk about mind, body, spirit, and abundance. Body, for me, is always the starting point, because it's kind of, like all guys want to be in good shape and you want to feel better. Once you get that, the others kind of fall in line.
Yeah.
Right? Your mindset, you'll start getting right, because you can't get your body without the mindset. Once you have the mindset, your body goes, spirituality then becomes more important.
Yeah. Really quick on that is, I don't think we really touched on this in this episode. We have in the past, but essentially, you have to put yourself first in life, because it's not really possible to be there for everyone else if you're not taking care of your own self. And that's why I think it's important that people understand how to say no to others, how to prioritize your fitness and your health and your well-being, because if you're not taking care of yourself first, it's impossible to take care of others.
Yeah, and
especially as men.
Eliminate those excuses, man. We all have them. We all kind of live on them, but put down the phone.
Yep.
Get up earlier. Go to bed earlier. Optimize your sleep. Find ways. But get your ass into something physical. Move your body. Move your life. Change your ways. Move forward and grow.
That's all right. Good stuff.
Beautiful. We'll leave it right there. Thank you.